Let's move on to emerging new therapies, and there's again some very interesting new data at this meeting about different combinations. We've talked about some of them already: ixazomib, pomalidomide, dexamethasone. In the realm of new drugs, what's got you excited at this meeting, Saad?
I think the most exciting drug, and perhaps the first targeted biomarker-driven targeted therapy we're going to get, venetoclax, which is BCL2 inhibitor, which appears to have striking activity in translocation 11-14 patients. I believe the data is being presented by Dr. Kumar in the monotherapy setting for that.
What was the response rate in this population for the audience?
So
40% for the 11-14.
Roughly about 40% for relapsed refractory patients with translocation 11-14, which is pretty striking. Higher than what we've seen with other therapies in a similar setting. So I think that's probably exciting. And then let's
stick with venetoclax for a minute. So we participated in that study, and the interesting thing is that the overall response rate to all the patients is about 20%. But it was this observation that the 11-14 seemed to be really responding well, and if you just look at those, it's almost double that, 40%. And clearly, as an oral single-agent pill that's already FDA approved in chronic lymphocytic leukemia, this is quite exciting stuff. What do you think about it, Paul?
I'm very impressed by it, and I applaud Shaji for his work here, because essentially, as you point out, Keith, it's oral, it's well tolerated, and this 11-14 subset benefit. The other piece of it, of course, is the addition to bortezomib, which Philippe's presenting, and I think that combination is very striking.
Yes.
And there's some mechanism of action rationale for that, isn't there, with downregulation of MCL1 by Velcade and facilitating venetoclax's function, I think.
Absolutely, and that rationale seems to have really panned out in terms of the results.
And Sagar and Rita, tell us, do you have any experience with venetoclax? You've been involved in the studies for sure, I know, so tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been struck not just about 11-14 as an enrichment factor, but Vikas Gupta from our group actually has data here suggesting CD20 actually may be even a better enrichment factor than 11-14. And if you look at not just venetoclax as a single agent, which is what's reported here, but the addition of a little bit of dexamethasone, which actually may make cells more dependent on BCL2, the response rate may be even higher in that subset of patients. So we've been really struck by advanced patients having almost tumor lysis-like syndrome with either single agent or combination with Dex.
Amrita, thoughts?
I mean, I would echo what everyone said, and I've been using it in the context of patients who've literally failed everything, including antibody, and have been astounded by some of the responses we've had.
Yeah, I have the same experience. So that's a very exciting one to watch for, and trials are ongoing. And I think there is a compassionate use program one can sometimes obtain it for even today from the company. Other drugs that caught your attention at this meeting, Sagar, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a new target, I think selinexor represents an interesting sort of concept of targeting this concept of nuclear transport export inhibitors. And what I think we've all been struck by is at least that it does appear to have single agent activity, but there was some tox associated with the current formulation of the compound.
What kind of toxicity is being seen with selinexor?
Mostly GI, so nausea, diarrhea, anorexia, so weight loss, just and a lot of fatigue was seen with the single agent.
And can you remind me sorry to interrupt, but can you remind me and the audience particularly what did the trial do and what did it show? Or if you're not familiar, I can certainly take a stab at it.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. The data that's being presented really looks at single agent therapy or the addition of dexamethasone with selinexor, and the response rate was somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. But some of these patients, again, are very, very advanced, and some of the responses have been quite durable.
So as I recall, this study enrolled, it's called the STORM study, and it enrolled patients who were either refractory to bortezomib, lenalidomide, pomalidomide, and carfilzomib, or refractory to all four of those drugs and daratumumab, so penta-refractory if you want. And the response rate was about 20% in those patients. Does that impress you, or is that?
I think certainly it suggests that there's a very significant signal here. And again, we've been struck by the kinds of responses we've seen in those penta-refractory patients that are usually quite beat up.
Yeah. Anybody else have any experience with selinexor they'd like to share?
I just think the penta-refractory data are very striking. I agree with Sagar, and I think that to see patients in whom all those drug classes have failed them and then benefits remarkable. And I think what's worth also mentioning is the combination with bortezomib has been very favorable in terms of tolerability, which I think was quite unexpected, but nonetheless very encouraging.
And I think to sort of build on that, it appears, at least from the data, both with bortezomib and carfilzomib, that the best way to prevent the GI toxicity we were talking about is to use a proteasome inhibitor, because the safety profile.
How does that work? I heard somebody say that. I'm struggling with how that.
I'm not sure I can understand or explain mechanism. I can tell you that in other diseases, like AML, for instance, the AE profile for the single agent is the same as we've seen in myeloma, but the combination with, say, 7 and 3 does the same thing. It seems to somehow reduce the GI and the fatigue that is seen with single agent selinexor.
Maybe they're so sick from the 7 and 3.
Yeah,
that,
that's what I was going to say.
Maybe, but you know, instead of...
Okay, all right, so selinexor is it's also been presented at this meeting in combination with carfilzomib, and I've heard also that that's been quite successful. So this is a new drug, new mechanism of action, impressive response rate. Going to have to learn how to manage the toxicities to make this part of our routine practice. But I think you're right, this is the second, in addition to venetoclax, the second new drug that we're quite excited about.